We've got a community of about 50,000 now
Yeah.
on Noon, and people coming to us all the time, and a kind of just a rapturous reception for this idea of optimism about what's possible
Yeah.
for women.
Yeah.
And so much in the culture about men being like silver foxes or fine wine, getting better with age,
Yeah.
whereas women are seen as peaches, one wrinkle and we're done.
Yeah.
And there's such a terrible thing in our culture at the moment, which gives women a kind of sell by date,
Yeah.
particularly in kind of media and marketing and advertising and the kind of world that we know about TV. Terrible.
Yeah.
And this pressure to go on looking young. And that strikes me as crazy. 50 is only halfway through. And also by 2030, over half the workforce is over 50. And also over 50s are the ones with the money.
Yeah.
Women aged 45 to 65 in the UK are behind over 90% of all household consumer spending
Yeah.
decisions.
Yeah.
And yet we appear in less than 10% of advertising. So there's a huge discrepancy and a lack of representation around women who are older. And often the only women we're allowed to see in our culture are older women who look freakishly young. We all know the kind of people that I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Lots of those kind of movie stars, Nicole Kidman.
Yeah. I was about to say, Nicole.
Doesn't exactly look like your average 50-year-old. So we did a big piece of research with
Yeah.
Accenture when I first launched Noon, and we found then that over half of women at 50 feel either invisible or completely unrepresented in the culture. And that really matters because I believe that you can't be what you can't see.
Yeah.
So really what we're doing at Noon is creating a new map, new signposts, a new vision of what life between 50 and 75 can look like for women, but actually increasingly now for men. Noon is as a kind of midlife brand. We
Yeah.
started with the women and I have my queenagers, but I really want to start doing some stuff for what I call the noble man, which I
Yeah.
think would fit quite well because I see a lot of the same issues that are hitting women are also hitting men. So just to go back on this, so we in our research that we found that by 50, over half of women have been through at least 5 of divorce, bereavement, redundancy, caring for elderly parents, looking after a Gen Z, a child with a kind of eating disorder or some kind of anxiety
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah.
There's an
Yeah.
absolute epidemic of Gen Z mental health. Then not to mention their own financial, mental or domestic abuse, plus a bit of menopause, other kind of health issues. And there's a whole
And this
gamut.
is represented in your community, the women who come to you.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is a representative sample across the benchmarked against the whole
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
UK. So
Yeah.
women 45 to 65, it's a proper big sample. And we call that the midlife collision.
Yeah.
And because often what happens is those horsemen of the midlife apocalypse all arrive together. And then they can really wipe out whatever it was that you thought that you were doing in your life. But that sounds a bit depressing, but what's fascinating about that is that we also found that the women who had been through the most, who'd had the most of that midlife collision, ended up the happiest. That through going through, in my book, I talk about it's not a midlife crisis, it's a midlife chrysalis. It's an
Oh, I love that.
opportunity.
I love that.
Yeah, you have to use a bit of your own
Yeah.
journalistic skills. It's an opportunity to become something new.
Yeah.
And also, I think the excitement about the 100-year life is that you get to try out other things. So for 25 years, I was this very kind of successful journalistic honcho. Now I've become a founder at 50. I'm
Yeah.
learning how to use Zero and or Stripe and all these kind of online things. And I run a kind of lovely team and I have this incredible community of women. And I've become a very different kind of person.
Yeah.
But it took quite a lot of work. And I'm also very aware that a lot of the women who come to me are in a state of transition. They're very anxious. And often the hardest part about a change is just sitting with the uncertainty, getting to grips with the fact that everything that used to be is now not.
Yes.
And giving your sign, I talk in the book about shape shifting and becoming putty and allowing yourself to not know for a while. So we were talking about what would we say to somebody who'd just been made redundant. I would say just allow yourself to sit with it for a while, accept that you're not going to know. Don't try and jump back into what you were doing.
Yeah.
See this as an opportunity to sit in the dark for a while, a bit like kind of a wintry field, and lie fallow and regenerate. The oldest story of all, I'm a storyteller, is the story of the goddess Iana, an Assyrian myth, who went down into the underworld and was hung on a hook for several months until she's rescued by her sister, and then she goes back to rule in both the underworld and the overworld. But she needed that time of regeneration. And I think in midlife, if we really are going to make a true transformation, a pivot from what we were into something new, which is the exciting part and the opportunity, then we need to accept that it's going to take a bit of time to do that. I think we have such a such a lack of capacity to sit with discomfort or to sit with not knowing.
I think you're so right. Even speaking personally, I always want to know the answer.
Yeah,
Like,
me too.
if this change is great, I can handle change, but I need to know now
What I'm going to.
what's happening next.
Yeah.
And I need to know definitely that's definitely going to happen. It's actually very hard
To not know.
to carry not knowing the answer, I think. And it
Yeah.
might be more so the case for people like you and me who are journalists. We're used to very fast-paced newsrooms, deadlines and getting to the answer. We get to the answer really fast.
Yeah, and we're almost obsessed by getting to what is the answer about.
What's happening next? People watching probably see the manic energy coming out of us.
But I think that that's really interesting. So certainly I lived in that kind of mania for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I'm very energetic anyway. I have a lot of energy. But what I've discovered in the last 5 years really is the beauty of stillness and calm. Lots of people who used to know me will laugh when I say that I spend a lot of time now going on silent retreats, and I do silent meditation and yoga for 7 days and don't speak to anybody. And actually I love that. I find that deeply nourishing. And I think that how I am now, what we do at noon, is so different from what I did at the Sunday Times, because I feel it's coming from a very different place. And that is the midlife opportunity to really tap into the road less traveled in your own life. So for me, that I felt like I carried my head around on a stick. You're so not in your body. We were so taught to be in our minds.
Yeah.
I was at St. Paul's, and then I went to Westminster. I went to Oxford. I had the most ridiculously privileged upbringing and a bit of a crazy family. But what was valued there was intellectual capacity. And particularly in the Sunday Times newsroom, it's how can you argue a forensic point? Can you carry your argument? It's all about the mind. And I think that really the difference for me in the last 5 years has been really coming into my body.
So let's talk about some of this. You mentioned how you went through that period, and some of it was around silent retreats and mushrooms.
Yes, I did.
So tell us all about this. This is a mass market topic. Everybody's really interested.
Tash was like,
where do we sign up?
So,
and the silent retreats.
The silent retreat, actually, I've done a whole load of wacky find yourself kind of stuff
As a
since I left
consequence of having lost yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think because I felt so lost when I came out of the Sunday Times that I really needed to go on a bit of an exploration. And also in this mania that we've been talking about, it's not much time for self-reflection.
No,
and I'd brought up 2 kids, and I've been the breadwinner, and I've been working on this manic pace. So I'd never really had any time to do anything like that.
Yeah.
So I went off to Jamaica with my friend Decca, who I was talking about earlier, who actually wrote an amazing article for the Sunday Times magazine about our trip to Jamaica. It won the BBC's Feature of the Year.
Yeah.
So we went off and we took 3 huge doses of psilocybin, magic mushrooms, in a week. It's legal in Jamaica. I should just add. And this is not microdosing. This is taking 5 grams, 8 grams, 10 grams of psilocybin at once. And you do it, you take a dose and then you have a day of integration and another dose and a day of integration and then another. But what was amazing actually was the group. So we did it with about 12 other people. Lots of them were men, and they'd arrived with these hearts that were completely shrunken. They were a bit like husks, these chaps. They felt that they ticked all the boxes that society had told them they were meant to tick to be successful. Silicon Valley lawyers and all that kind of thing. And most of them completely lost the capacity to feel. So what happened over the week was this incredible expansion. You saw them kind of weeping. There was one man who was going to divorce his wife and was suing his business partner. And by the end of it, he was like, no, I see it's all kind of my fault. And he was ringing his wife and saying, I'm so sorry. And so there was a wonderful kind of expansion of heart. And for me, I just had this amazing sense one day of having just dissolved. I felt like I dissolved into a bowl of cream that I had become completely one with this amazing kind of golden light, that I had hit the kind of singularity, as it were, that you have a sense of your entire ego dissolving and you just being part of everything, a sense of a kind of golden connection and everything being linked together. And I came out of that experience with this idea of creating Noon, of creating a network of people and women in midlife to support each other, to create this whole new map of what this next phase of our lives could be.